So, how's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today we're going to be talking about what use is there for the Surface Pro 2 in 2017. So this is the professional version of Microsoft's tablet that came out back in 2013, so it's like 4 years old already. So you might be wondering, what sort of benefits would somebody get out of buying the old one versus buying one of the more recent offerings? If I recall correctly, Microsoft did announce like a Surface Pro 5 that was basically called just Surface Pro for 2017. So one of the reasons that I went ahead and chose the Surface Pro 2 over anything newer is it comes down to cost, a lot of it. So I was able to get this off of eBay for $200, and it's really good looking. It's in very good condition, considering there are not a whole lot of scratches on it. It's not damaged in any significant way. I don't believe the screen has been replaced either, and it looks very good. So that is always something to keep in mind. So if you're considering getting a Surface Pro and you're thinking, well, I'll get the most recent one, do you really need it? Because here's the thing. The specs on these things have not increased that significantly, and the Windows 10 is not tied to the specific device. So now you think about a lot of mobile devices like tablets and stuff. I personally have been using iPads for about the last year, usually as a tablet. But one of the things with that is if you buy an older one, what ends up happening is the manufacturer stops supporting the operating system, and there's really no way you can get around that without going ahead and jailbreaking it, I believe, to install the more recent ones. So what the great thing about Windows here is, Surface Pro 2, there's one that I have here, it shipped back in 2013 when Windows 8 was still the main operating system for Windows. But since they offered the free upgrade to Windows 10, apparently whoever owned this took advantage of that, which was really nice of them. And that means then that I basically have the most recent operating system on here. And the great thing is, even if Windows comes out with another operating system after Windows 10, I could always install that on the Surface Pro 2, providing it meets the right specifications. So it's not like a lot of other mobile devices where you actually have this problem of planned obsolescence in a lot of cases. You can, providing the specs meet, put any operating system you want on here. You could put Ubuntu on here. You could probably make it a Hackintosh, but that's another issue entirely. I have no idea for sure. But you could install basically any other version of Windows on here. The question, of course, is, would it support the touch screen? And that is a legitimate concern because a lot of these other operating systems do not have touchscreens. But the great thing is, you can always plug a keyboard and a mouse into here and it still works as a computer. So now the specs on this, it has 4 gigabytes of RAM. If we take a look here at the settings, I believe it's in System and About. Yeah. So the system itself has 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's running the Intel Core i5 4200 CPU at 1.60 gigahertz and 2.30 gigahertz overclocked or boosted. So this basically has the same amount of RAM that my laptop from 2007 has. So that's a little bit concerning, right? But at the same time, you're not going to be using this tablet for the same kind of tasks. It also only has 120 gigabytes of memory. But you compare that to other tablets like the iPad, even the iPad 2017 that I recently bought, it only has 32 gigabytes of system storage. And I have not run out of storage in the last 4 months or so that I've owned it, or 3 or 4. So the thing is, even with so little RAM and so little storage, it's pretty competitive versus a lot of other tablets that are currently out there, such as Android and iOS tablets, even though it's running Windows. So I kind of like that idea, like the idea that I can upgrade it in the future, unlike a lot of these other tablets that are currently on the market. And I think the specifications themselves are pretty decent. And on top of this, and this is where we get into really good things, we can run full desktop applications on here. So for example, right here is Steam. and I have a game, I have Stronghold Kingdoms installed on here. At the moment, it's not cooperating. This is a Stronghold Kingdoms thing. If I tell it to play, it will check for an update, and then there's a DirectX problem, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I've had that problem before on my main desktop, and it's usually a wishy-washy thing to get it fixed. I've tried restarting it, that didn't do any good. But the great thing is here, not only can I install existing games on the tablet, on the Surface Pro 2, I can also stream games that I've already installed on my desktop itself. So in other words, if we take a look at some of the games that I've been playing for First Impressions. No, that's not right. That's the Steam Top 100 games. So First Impressions, here we go. Age of Rivals. So this is a card game that I have on Steam. I have it installed on my other operating system. And the great thing is here, I can just stream this from my desktop computer. I can go ahead and start that. And it should pick it up. How are we going? Yeah, there we go. And the great thing is, unlike the other streaming options that I've had in the past, if you think about it, I've used the NVIDIA game stream for my iPad. With that, the problem was always there was no actual touch input. So now, like right now, I can touch all of this stuff. On the iPad, what I needed to do every single time, if I wanted to play a game that was basically on the desktop originally, I would always have to be scrolling around the screen, using the screen like a big touchpad, like a glorified touchpad on my iPad in order to interact with the screen, even though technically you could have interacted with it via touch controls like it does here. So on the Surface Pro, these all behave as if it's a mouse click. So like I click on play, it will automatically take us into play. Whereas on the iPad, using NVIDIA streaming, I would have to go scrolling like this with it. So that way I could control the cursor on the screen. And then when I got the cursor to the location that I wanted to be, I could tap anywhere on the screen and then it would control that cursor. So here we have the option of streaming these games from my desktop, where I actually have all of the current processing power to do this kind of stuff, right over to my tablet. And the performance is pretty solid, even though I don't have, and the tablet doesn't have AC wireless Wi-Fi cards in it. It's still, the performance is very good because it runs at a native 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is great because that's the exact native resolution that my computer itself runs at. So there's a very great synergy going on there that you might not see in later iterations of the Surface Pro. Like I know the Surface Pro 4 has a 2K display, I think. It's not nearly as low a resolution as this one, but the great thing is I really don't need, I don't need a high resolution tablet to do this kind of stuff. So then we can quit. And that will just take us right back to Steam. So then any game really that's on my Steam at the moment, I can just play using the Surface Pro, right? And I think that's pretty powerful. Then there's also the ability to run store apps from the Windows Store. Now this is one of the big downsides, I think, for me. While everything that's desktop related works fairly well, like if we go back to Steam, there are some issues here, like selecting games. I have like 700 games on Steam. So if we go and do all games, scrolling down this list of games here is very difficult. And so basically what you'll end up doing a lot of times, you'll have to use the search. So you press search and then you can bring up the keyboard and you can search the game that you want. So that's like one of the big issues with the desktop apps. But by and large, a lot of the desktop apps work as you would expect them to. However, when we go over here to the Windows Store, oh my goodness, I have had so many issues with the Windows Store. I don't know what it is with Microsoft, how they can't seem to get their act together when it comes to making the Windows Store work, because I don't even know what it's supposed to be called anymore. Is it called Windows Metro? Is it called Universal Design Apps? Oh my goodness. I just don't remember. I can't keep up with how many different names they come up with for this stuff. Metro was great. I remember Metro. Whatever they came up with after that for this new design of mobile hybrid desktop apps for Microsoft, I don't know. I don't know what it's called anymore. I've just had so many issues installing things on here. If you want to install an app, for example, here's a game, Forza Motorsport 4.7. Here's the problem. Like, you go down and you take a look at the various specifications. They don't tell you nearly as much, and there's a lot of times there's a disparity between the information. Like, they'll give you the minimum specs and they'll tell you something, and then for the recommended specs it'll just be blank. It's really, really weird. It's like they haven't figured out a way to get the store to behave yet. But the biggest problem is just downloading stuff on the store. So many times it fails. So, like, we go over to the Xbox app. I don't even know where it is. The Xbox app is on the main screen. Launch the Xbox app. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to log into it. It's like I have to restart the app about 5 times before it will finally log me into it. And it's just such a hassle because of that. So I kind of wanted to embrace the whole idea of going mobile, because supposedly apps like these are optimized for touch screens as opposed to standard desktop apps. And it's just so difficult to get into it because the performance is abysmal. And that it doesn't really stop there. So right now the tablet is running in tablet mode for Windows. So in other words, like when you bring up the start menu, it's going to bring up it in full screen, and there's no desktop. So it works much more like a tablet. But then there are things like closing down apps. You're supposed to swipe from the top like that, and it closes, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it just freezes the entire screen up. I was demonstrating this to a family member, and what happened was I was trying to close apps. I was just trying to close the settings app. Like, you open up settings here, and what would happen is it was like it would lose the sense that I had been touching it, like halfway down the swipe, and it would do this flashy thing, and then the whole screen would just freeze, and you couldn't touch it anymore. And to get the touch ability back, you have to press the power button, and then press the power button again. That's not a problem because it's not shut down, but oh my goodness, is it annoying. Like, I'm used to it where in iOS, for example, I can just, if an app is misbehaving, which is very rare, if an app is misbehaving, I can just double tap the home button and we'll go back there to the home screen, and then you'll be able to close applications. Apparently you can touch the start button here, but it seems like whenever the screen freezes up, the button freezes up as well. It's like they're attached to one another, and it just makes it so weird using it like that. So I would have to say, like, one of the biggest problems with the Surface Pro 2 is not the hardware, but it's Windows 10. And the fact that they just can't get Microsoft doesn't seem to be able to get their act together when it comes to designing competent apps for their Windows Metro store, or whatever the hell it's called these days. So I don't know where to go with that, but overall, I think it's been a great investment. Originally, what got me looking at these was I needed a browser that actually has full desktop functionality. So in other words, you can install plugins and use the developer tools on it. This was something I needed to further, I was studying some web development stuff, and I wanted to be able to do it with a tablet. I didn't want to have to be confined to my desk the entire time. And my existing tablets, I have the iPad 2017. You can't get full developer tools on Safari, or even when you install Google Chrome on any tablet like that. So that was the main reason that I went ahead and got the Surface Pro 2. And it certainly works for that. If we could launch Windows Chrome. It's the desktop version of it, just like you would expect. It works as you would expect. I really don't have any complaints about it at all. But then I sort of moved on, and then I was thinking about performance issues, because that is one of the big things that you might have been thinking about as well. I can play my games on the go, and you can, but I think there's a lot more potential here for simply streaming your existing library to another location, because there are a lot of games that I play on Steam that oftentimes really don't need to be, you don't need a keyboard and mouse to play them. They're very touch oriented, very, very mouse oriented. And you could just use a touchscreen to do it. And this actually is a lot better than the NVIDIA option that I was using before on the tablet. So I think that makes a pretty strong case for buying a Surface Pro 2 in 2017, because like I said before, it is about 4 years old now. But you have to think about the fact that unlike a lot of other tablets out there, the operating system is nowhere near obsolete. I don't have to worry about not getting updates for Windows 10 for a long time. Unlike you look at a tablet that came out 4 years ago, if the The manufacturer hasn't dropped support, no new updates for the operating system on it yet. It's going to happen pretty soon, but that's nowhere near that's nowhere in the cards for the next few years for Windows 10 here. And the Surface Pro 4, the Surface Pro 2, it has the strength, it has the power to do what like the current system. Like here we go. Trying to close this window. You're supposed to be able to swipe down to it. Can't do it. Oh, that's such a sad thing. Look at that. Did it just freeze now? It froze, didn't it? Yeah. But I mean, the great thing is, if you look at the hardware on here, it is pretty competitive versus what is currently available on other tablets. And now, granted, it is about twice the weight. So in other words, my iPad 2017, I think that was what, 1 pound? And then this is 2 pounds. So this is twice the weight of my existing tablet. And the newer ones are even bigger. So they don't increase in weight. I think they actually get a little bit lighter, but they are bigger. And I find this plenty big. Like when using this, I have no desire for a larger tablet than this one, to be honest. So that's another great thing about the Surface Pro 2 is it's smaller in screen size than the Surface Pro 3 and 4. So like, did it start responding? No, it didn't. See, like I can tap the Windows. Oh wait, we got response back again. No, maybe we didn't. I was gonna say I could tap the Windows icon and it's not doing anything. Like I can rely upon tapping the home button on iOS, and it's going to cancel out of these apps. But no, look, the screen isn't doing anything anymore. I can't input anything into it, and this happens too often, way too often. So I would say that's the biggest downside to this. It's just the touch screen itself sometimes acts unbelievably weird, and those store apps, I can't bring it up anymore because it froze. Oh, those store apps, don't even bother with them. That's a nightmare. Like, where exactly do you come up with the idea that taking minutes to log into Xbox Live or whatever it's called is acceptable nowadays? Like, I complain when Steam goes down during the afternoon or something, and I want to look information up on their site. But with Xbox on Windows, it just seems to happen all the time to me. Maybe it's my internet connection or something, but I don't have problems with any other application. It's this alone. It's Windows alone that I ever have had this application with, and the same applies to updates. On my current desktop, it doesn't want to pick up the latest updates because I don't know. There was something about it. It's just really, really frustrating sometimes. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers all my thoughts on it. I would heartily recommend a Surface Pro 2 over a Surface Pro 4, though. If any of these Hey, have we gotten something back here? No, apparently not. It looked like it wanted to do something there, but then it didn't. Oh, wait. Oh, it's going crazy now. Look at that. But yeah, I would still recommend the Surface Pro 2 over the Surface Pro 4 if you're thinking about if you have any use scenarios that are similar to mine, where you're interested in full-fledged desktop browsing, if you're interested in maybe playing some games from your main computer, your main gaming PC, just streaming them over your Wi-Fi network to the Surface Pro 2. Or even just playing some low-end games, because this thing does have 2 fans in it, and it's important. I did check it out after I got it, because maybe one of the fans burnt out. No, they both work yet. You can feel like a little bit of heat coming out of them when you're running something intensive. I did install, and it's doing the thing again. I did install a Fallout Shelter on here from the Windows Store. It was free. And yeah, it made the fans spin up for sure, but a lot of the times when I'm using this, the fans are not running at all. So that is... It's a very silent machine. It's fairly cool. From time to time, you'll notice it heats up a little bit. But overall, like the new Surface Pro 4, I believe they got rid of the fans altogether, at least in the low end model. And I doubt for the same price point. Like, okay, here's the thing. This model, I think it actually has a comparable processor, if not a better processor, to the ones in the lowest end model of the Surface Pro 4 and the Surface Pro refresh, like the Surface Pro 5. So for $200, it's just hard to to beat the functionality that's built in on this device. Now, one thing that you do need to keep in mind if you're going to go ahead and buy a Surface Pro 2 on eBay is make sure it has been upgraded to Windows 10. Make sure it's not just somebody installing Windows 10 on it. You should be able to see this page and see that it actually has a product ID or whatever they call that. The product ID number is actually verified because that is going to be one of the biggest restrictions if you have Windows 8 on it. And then you buy a $200 tablet and you say, okay, well, now I want to upgrade it to Windows 10. It's going to cost you like $100 or $80. That's a little bit harder to justify. But if it's already been upgraded to Windows 10 for free because Windows 10 was made available to a lot of these was made available to everybody like 1 year who had Windows 7 and Windows 8 for upgrades for free. So you will find a lot of these Surface Pro 2 tablets out there that have been upgraded to Windows 10. Now, this one did not come with any accessories, so it was just the tablet itself. I didn't get a pen. I didn't get a touch keyboard. I just got the tablet and the charger. It was $200 plus shipping. And overall, I would have to say there are some deficits. But I'm really loving the purchase so far. I may have lucked out here in getting a model for that low of a price. It didn't actually have cracked screens and very heavily abused exterior on it, because right now, if you look at it, you probably can't see it, but it's in very good shape considering it has scuff marks on the edges and stuff, like the paint is knocked away on the top, but ooh, it's in very good condition yet, all things considered. Compared to a lot of the stuff that I see on eBay, yeah, it's in good condition. Maybe the problem here with the touchscreen is like they replaced it and the digitizer is all goofy, but I couldn't say. But yeah, aside from those problems, thumbs up, man. I'm definitely looking forward to using this more to stream games and use the desktop web developers console for Google Chrome on here. So yeah, those are my thoughts on using a Surface Pro 2 in 2017. I do not think it is too long in the tooth. And for the price, it's so hard to beat it. With anything that's coming out now, you're going to be paying 4 times as much. Like for a Surface Pro 4 or 5 of equivalent specs, you're going to be paying about $800 to $900. That's just hard for me to justify when it's Windows and the hardware is like so much the same, unlike a lot of these other tablets out there. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know. Let me know what you think about using a tablet to stream games, especially a Windows tablet. If you've had any experience with it, what do you think? Has this convinced you that maybe a Surface Pro 2 or one of the older Surface Pros is actually in your future? Something to think about. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.